Monday morning coffee tastes like betrayal when you're reading your wife's goodbye note on Gmail. I'm filing for separation. Please respect my privacy. Marta. 17 years of marriage, reduced to 2 sentences and a dash. Hell hath no fury, like a woman with an email account and a lawyer on speed dial. I'm Martin Caldwell, 49 years old, and I fix broken electronics for a living. Turns out I should have been fixing my broken marriage instead. But nobody sends repair manuals for that particular model. The kitchen felt smaller suddenly, like the walls were closing in. Our house on Maple Street had always been too big for just the four of us. Me, Marta, and our two kids, Ross and Amelia. Now it felt like a mausoleum, all echoes and empty spaces where conversation used to live. Marta had left early for her job at Brennan and Associates, the advertising agency where she'd been climbing the corporate ladder for the past 5 years. Always another campaign, always another client dinner, always another reason to come home after midnight with that particular brand of exhaustion that comes from lying professionally. I should have seen it coming. The signs were there like breadcrumbs leading to a gingerbread house made of divorce papers. Late nights at the office. Mysterious phone calls that ended when I entered the room. New clothes, new perfume, new attitude. But here's the thing about being married to someone for 17 years. You develop a talent for not seeing what you don't want to see. It's like selective blindness, except it's voluntary, and it makes you stupid. My phone buzzed. Ross, our 22-year-old son, texting from his apartment across town, where he was pretending to be a responsible adult while working at a coffee shop and writing the great American novel. Dad, Mom told me. You okay? At least she'd given the kids a heads up. Thoughtful of her, really. Probably sent them a group text. Your father and I are separating. Please update your emergency contacts accordingly. I texted back. Fine, just peachy, because what else do you say? That your wife of 17 years just nuked your life via electronic mail? That you're sitting in your kitchen wondering where the last decade went and why you never noticed it leaving? The house felt different now, like someone had rearranged the furniture while I wasn't looking. Everything was in the same place, but nothing fit anymore. The family photos on the refrigerator looked like evidence from a crime scene. All those smiling faces, all those happy moments that turned out to be lies wrapped in Christmas wrapping paper. I finished my coffee and grabbed my keys. Frank Doyle, my boss at Midwest Electronics Repair, would want to know why I looked like I'd been hit by a truck full of reality. Frank had been married to the same woman for 32 years and treated divorce like a communicable disease, something that happened to other people, weaker people, people who didn't try hard enough. The drive to work took me through downtown, past the gentrified arts district where Marta liked to hang out with her advertising friends. Trendy restaurants with names like Fusion and Paradigm, where they served tiny portions of expensive food on plates the size of manhole covers. Places where people like me didn't belong, where the servers looked at you like you'd wandered in from a construction site, which, in a way, I had. My world was circuit boards and soldering irons, warranty claims, and customer complaints. Real things that broke in predictable ways and could be fixed with the right tools and enough patience. Not like marriages, which apparently could implode without warning and leave no forwarding address. The warehouse smelled like metal and possibility. Like every broken thing that came through our doors was just temporarily inconvenienced, rather than permanently damaged. I envied those devices their simple problems. Burned-out capacitors, loose connections, worn-out switches, problems with solutions. You look terrible, Frank said, appearing at my workstation like a gray-haired prophet of workplace wisdom. What happened? Marta wants a separation. Frank winced like I'd told him I had a terminal illness. Jesus, Marty, I'm sorry. What are you going to do? Respect her privacy, apparently. He shook his head. Privacy. That's what they call it now when they're screwing around on you. Frank had a way of cutting through nonsense like a hot knife through butter. 32 years of marriage had given him insights that I was just beginning to appreciate. You think she's having an affair? I think people don't ask for privacy unless they've got something to hide. The morning passed in a blur of repair tickets and customer complaints. Mrs. Henderson's microwave that sparked when she tried to heat leftover pizza. The Johnsons' television that only showed everything in green. Mr. Peterson's stereo that played everything at half speed, making every song sound like a funeral march. Normal problems with normal solutions. Unlike my marriage, which seemed to have developed a fault that couldn't be traced with a multimeter. Lunch break found me at Murphy's Pub, A dive bar 3 blocks from the warehouse, where the beer was cheap and the bartender didn't ask personal questions. Tom Murphy, the owner, was a transplant from Boston who'd brought his accent and his attitude with him when he moved to Ohio 15 years ago. "You look like someone stole your lunch money," Tom said, sliding a beer across the scarred wooden bar. "Wife wants a separation." Hell, that's rough. You see it coming? Should have. Probably would have if I'd been paying attention instead of assuming everything was fine. Tom nodded like he'd heard this story before. Probably had. Bartenders were like mechanics for broken hearts. They saw the same problems over and over, just with different faces attached. "What are you going to do?" "I don't know. Respect her privacy, I guess." Tom snorted. "Privacy, right. Let me tell you something, Marty. Privacy is what people want when they're doing things they know are wrong. You want my advice?" I nodded. "Find out what she's hiding, because I guarantee you, it's not what she's telling you it is." The afternoon dragged like a broken clock. Every repair felt like a metaphor for my marriage, something that used to work perfectly until one crucial component failed and brought down the whole system. The difference was, I knew how to fix the electronics. 5:30 came eventually, the way closing time always does in dive bars and broken marriages. I drove home through streets that looked the same but felt different, like I was seeing them through someone else's eyes. The house was empty. Marta wouldn't be home until late. Another client dinner, another campaign crisis, another excuse to be anywhere but here. Ross was at his apartment, probably writing angry poetry about the dissolution of the American family. Amelia was at college, 300 miles away and blissfully unaware that her parents had just joined the ranks of middle-aged statistics. I made myself a sandwich and sat at the kitchen table, staring at the phone bill that had arrived in the afternoon mail. 3 months of itemized calls and texts, a paper trail of our family's communication habits. That's when I saw it. A number I didn't recognize, appearing with suspicious frequency in the late-night hours. Dozens of calls, hundreds of texts, all to the same number, all from Marta's phone. All after midnight, all while I was sleeping in our bed, dreaming of a marriage that had apparently ended months ago, without anyone bothering to tell me. I grabbed my laptop and did what any rational, suspicious husband would do in the digital age. I logged into our shared email account, the one we used for bills and family stuff, the one where we'd stored 17 years of electronic memories. The password was still Ross 1999. The year our son was born, back when we thought passwords were about security instead of secrets. Marta's inbox told a story I didn't want to read but couldn't stop reading. Messages from someone named Jason, starting innocent enough. Work stuff, campaign ideas, professional collaboration, then gradually shifting, like a slow leak in a gas line that you don't notice until the whole house explodes. "Can't wait to see you tonight. Last night was incredible. When are you going to tell him?" The messages were dated going back 6 months. 6 months of lies. 6 months of late nights and client dinners that weren't client dinners. 6 months of me being the only person in my marriage who didn't know it was over. Jason Keller, fitness instructor turned social media influencer, according to his profile. 35 years old, six-pack abs, and the kind of smile that belonged in toothpaste commercials. Everything I wasn't, in other words. The latest message was from yesterday. "Booked us a room at the Riverside Inn for Friday. Can't wait to have you all to myself." The Riverside Inn, a boutique hotel in the Arts District. The kind of place where they put mints on your pillow and charge you $50 for a bottle of water. The kind of place where wives took their younger, fitter lovers for weekend getaways, while their husbands sat at home wondering why the marriage felt broken. I closed the laptop and sat in the quiet kitchen, listening to the house settle around me like an old man's bones. 17 years of marriage, 2 kids, a mortgage, and a shared history that apparently meant less than six-pack abs and a room at the Riverside Inn. Marta wanted privacy. I was about to give her more privacy than she'd bargained for. Friday evening found me parked across the street from the Riverside Inn, feeling like a private investigator in a bad movie. The kind where the husband sits in his car, eating stale donuts while his wife destroys their marriage one room service order at a time. I'd spent the week pretending everything was normal, going to work, fixing broken electronics, coming home to an empty house. Marta had been staying at her sister's place, claiming she needed space to think. Apparently thinking required a queen-sized bed and a fitness instructor named Jason. The Riverside Inn was exactly what I'd expected. Trendy, overpriced, and full of people who thought paying $300 a night for a hotel room made them sophisticated. The kind of place where they served champagne in plastic flutes and called it an elevated experience. Jason arrived first, driving a silver BMW that probably cost more than I made in 6 months. He parked in the valet area like he owned the place, tossed his keys to the attendant with the casual arrogance of someone who'd never had to fix his own car. 35 years old and built like a magazine cover, wearing clothes that cost more than my monthly grocery budget. The kind of guy who used words like synergy and optimization in casual conversation, who probably had a motivational quote tattooed somewhere tasteful. Marta arrived 20 minutes later in her Honda Civic, looking nervous and excited in a way I hadn't seen in years. She dressed up for the occasion. New dress, new shoes, the kind of effort she used to make for our anniversary dinners back when we still celebrated anniversaries. They met in the lobby like actors in a play I wasn't supposed to be watching, kissing like teenagers, holding hands like they'd invented romance, completely oblivious to the middle-aged husband sitting in a 15-year-old Ford across the street. I waited until they disappeared into the elevator, then grabbed my camera and walked across the street. The valet parking area was poorly lit, full of shadows and blind spots where a motivated husband could do some creative problem solving. Jason's BMW sat in the front row, gleaming under the streetlights like a silver monument to midlife crisis masculinity. The kind of car that screamed, "I peaked in high school, but I'm still trying," with custom rims and a sound system that probably violated several noise ordinances. I'd brought a small toolkit, nothing fancy, just some basic items from the repair shop. A valve stem tool, some superglue, and a few other supplies that would make Jason's evening more interesting than he'd planned. The valve stem tool made quick work of his tires. Not slashing, that would be vandalism. Just a gentle loosening of the valve stems, the kind of slow leak that wouldn't be noticed until morning. The kind of problem that would leave him stranded at the hotel while his borrowed wife wondered why her boyfriend couldn't manage basic car maintenance. The superglue went on his door handles, just a thin layer that would dry clear and invisible. Not enough to cause permanent damage, just enough to make opening the doors an adventure in automotive problem solving. For the finishing touch, I slipped a fake parking ticket under his windshield wiper. Nothing official, just a piece of paper I'd printed at work with violation tokens. Parking in a married woman's spot. The whole operation took less than 10 minutes. By the time I walked back to my car, Jason's BMW looked exactly the same, but would perform very differently. Like my marriage, in reverse. I drove home feeling better than I had all week. Not good, exactly, but better. Like I'd finally done something instead of just sitting around waiting for my life to explode. The house was still empty, still full of echoes and broken promises. But now it felt different, like the balance had shifted slightly in my favor. Marta wanted privacy, and Jason wanted my wife. They were both about to learn that wanting things and getting them were two very different propositions. Saturday morning brought a text message from an unknown number. "Stay away from my car, you pathetic loser." Jason had figured out who was responsible for his transportation troubles. Faster than I'd expected, but not fast enough to matter. The damage was done, the message was sent, and the game was officially underway. I texted back, "I don't know what you're talking about, but you might want to check your insurance policy. I hear BMWs are expensive to repair." His response came immediately. "I know who you are, Martin. Stay away from me, and stay away from Marta." The fact that he knew my name meant Marta had told him about me. Probably over room service and champagne while I was sitting at home wondering why my marriage felt broken. They'd discussed me like a problem to be solved, an obstacle to be removed, an inconvenient husband who didn't know when to disappear gracefully. Well, I was about to become a lot more inconvenient. I spent Saturday afternoon at Murphy's pub, nursing a beer and planning my next move. Tom Murphy listened to my story with the practiced attention of a bartender who'd heard every variation of human stupidity at least twice. "So you messed with his car," Tom said. "That's a start. But you're thinking too small, Marty. You want to hurt these people, you gotta hit them where they live." "What do you mean?" "I mean reputation. These fancy advertising types, these social media pretty boys, they live and die by what other people think of them. You want revenge? Make them famous for all the wrong reasons." Tom had a point. Jason made his living as a fitness influencer, selling workout programs and protein powder to people who wanted to look like him. His whole business model depended on his image as a successful, trustworthy guy who had his life together. Marta worked in advertising, where perception was reality and scandal was career poison. Her boss, Patricia Brennan, ran the agency like a finishing school for corporate climbers. Affairs with clients' husbands were probably not encouraged in the employee handbook. How do I do that without ending up in jail? Tom grinned. Easy. You tell the truth. Just make sure you tell it to the right people at the right time. I spent Sunday researching my targets like a general planning a campaign. Jason's social media presence was extensive and carefully curated. Thousands of followers who hung on his every workout tip and motivational quote. His business partnerships with supplement companies and fitness equipment manufacturers. His upcoming appearance at a health and wellness expo downtown. Marta's professional network was smaller but more concentrated. The advertising industry in our city was incestuous. Everyone knew everyone, and gossip traveled faster than wildfire. Her colleagues, her clients, her professional associations, all potential audiences for the truth about her extracurricular activities. Monday morning brought another email from Marta. I know what you did to Jason's car. This kind of behavior is exactly why our marriage failed. Grow up, Martin. The irony was so thick you could cut it with a knife. The woman who was having an affair with a fitness instructor was lecturing me about mature behavior. The wife who was destroying our family for six-pack abs and hotel room adventures was telling me to grow up. I wrote back, I don't know what you're talking about, but I hope Jason has good insurance. BMWs are expensive to fix, and I hear valve stems can be tricky. Her response came within minutes. Stay away from us, Martin. I'm serious. Serious. Like she'd been serious about our wedding vows, or serious about our family, or serious about any of the promises she'd made over the past 17 years. Marta's version of serious seemed to have a very flexible definition, but she was right about one thing. I was going to stay away from them. Way away. So far away that they'd never see me coming. The first step was gathering intelligence. I called my old college roommate Dave, who'd become a private investigator after his own divorce 5 years ago. Dave specialized in matrimonial cases, which was a fancy way of saying he followed cheating spouses around and documented their indiscretions for court proceedings. Marty, how the hell are you? Wait, let me guess. Your wife's cheating and you need proof. How did you know? Because happily married guys don't call private investigators on Monday mornings. What's the story? I gave him the basics, the email, the phone records, the hotel rendezvous, the fitness instructor with the expensive car, and the flexible morals. Sounds like a classic case, Dave said. Midlife crisis wife, younger guy, lots of sneaking around. How much proof do you need? Enough to make them both regret it. Dave laughed. Now you're talking my language. Give me a week and I'll have enough evidence to wallpaper your lawyer's office. Photos, videos, financial records, the whole package. What's it going to cost me? For an old friend? Call it $1,000, plus expenses. And Marty? This Jason character. I'll run a background check on him too. Guys like that usually have skeletons in their closets. Might find something interesting. $1,000 was a lot of money for someone in my tax bracket, but it was a bargain compared to what Marta and Jason were about to pay for their little romance. Some investments were worth making, even when the returns came in the form of other people's misery. Tuesday brought the first piece of good news I'd had in weeks. Dave called with preliminary results from his background check on Jason. Your wife's boyfriend has some interesting history, Dave said. 3 previous relationships that ended badly, including one with a married client at his old gym. There's a pattern here, Marty. This guy specializes in breaking up marriages. What kind of pattern? He targets older women, usually married, usually with money, plays the young stud role until they leave their husbands, then moves on to the next mark. Classic predator behavior. The information hit me like a punch to the stomach. Marta wasn't Jason's first married conquest. She was just the latest in a series of middle-aged women who'd mistaken his attention for love. She thought she was special, thought she'd found her soulmate in a fitness instructor with perfect abs and flexible morals. She was just another mark in a con game she didn't even know she was playing. There's more, Dave continued. His business is in trouble. The supplement company dropped him last month after some customers got sick from his protein powder. The equipment manufacturer is threatening to sue him over false advertising claims. He needs money, Marty, and your wife probably looks like a solution to his financial problems. The picture was becoming clearer. Jason wasn't just stealing my wife. He was using her as a meal ticket, a way to solve his business problems and fund his lifestyle. Marta thought she was having a romantic affair with a younger man. She was actually being scammed by a professional predator who saw her as a walking ATM. What about photos? Working on it. They're not exactly hiding, so it shouldn't take long. Give me another few days, and you'll have enough evidence to sink both of them. I hung up feeling like I'd just gained a significant advantage in a war I was finally ready to fight. Knowledge was power, and I was about to become very powerful indeed. Wednesday evening brought an unexpected visitor. Ross knocked on the door around 8 o'clock, carrying a six-pack of beer and wearing the expression of a son who'd drawn the short straw in family crisis management. "Dad, we need to talk." We sat in the living room, drinking beer and pretending this was a normal father-son conversation instead of an intervention staged by my soon-to-be ex-wife. "Mom's worried about you," Ross said. "She thinks you're not handling the separation well. Your mother is worried about me." "Yeah. She says you've been acting strange, maybe following her around, messing with her friend's car." Friend. That's what she was calling Jason now, her friend. Like they'd met at a book club instead of a hotel room. Like their relationship was based on shared interests instead of shared bodily fluids. "What do you think, Ross?" My son took a long pull from his beer, considering his words carefully. "I think Mom's been acting strange for months, coming home late, always on her phone, treating you like you were invisible. I think maybe she's not the best judge of who's acting strange." The loyalty in his voice almost broke my heart. Ross had noticed what I'd been too blind to see, had watched his mother's affair develop while I was busy fixing other people's broken electronics and ignoring my own broken marriage. "She's having an affair, son," I figured. "Who is he?" "Fitness instructor named Jason, 35 years old, drives a BMW, specializes in breaking up marriages." Ross nodded like this, confirmed what he'd already suspected. "What are you going to do?" "I'm going to make sure they both regret it." "Dad, not like that. I'm not going to hurt anyone, but I'm not going to just disappear quietly either." "Your mother wants privacy? She's about to get more attention than she ever imagined." He remained. We finished our beers in comfortable silence, two men contemplating the wreckage of a family that used to work. Ross left around 10, hugging me goodbye like he was afraid I might not be there when he came back. He was wrong about that. I wasn't going anywhere, but Marta and Jason were about to wish they had. Thursday morning arrived with the kind of gray sky that made everything look like a crime scene photograph. I was sitting at my workstation, pretending to concentrate on a broken television that kept showing everything in green, when Dave called with the news I'd been waiting for. "Got your photos, Marty. And brother, these are going to ruin their whole week." "How bad?" "Bad enough to end careers and start divorce proceedings. They're not exactly discreet. Kissing in restaurant parking lots, holding hands at the farmer's market, acting like they're the only two people in the world. I've got shots of them going into 3 different hotels over the past week." "3 different hotels? Your boy Jason likes variety. The Riverside Inn, the downtown Marriott, and some sleazy place out by the interstate. Looks like he's running up quite a tab on your wife's credit card." The financial angle hadn't occurred to me, but it made perfect sense. Jason's business was failing, his sponsorship deals were falling through, and he needed funding for his lifestyle. Marta had a steady income and 17 years of accumulated assets that would soon be available for division in divorce proceedings. "Email me everything," I said. "Photos, financial records, whatever you've got." "Already done. Check your inbox. And Marty, be careful with this stuff. It's dynamite." Dave was right. The photos were devastating, clear, well-lit documentation of my wife's affair with a man young enough to be her younger brother. Marta looked happy in the pictures, happier than I'd seen her in years. Radiant, even. Like she'd finally found what she'd been looking for. It should have hurt more than it did. Instead, I felt a cold satisfaction, like a mechanic who'd finally diagnosed a complex problem. The marriage was broken, had been broken for months, and now I had proof of exactly where the failure had occurred. The financial records were even more interesting. Hotel bills, restaurant charges, shopping trips to expensive stores, all on joint credit cards that I was legally responsible for paying. Marta had been funding her affair with our money, using our shared assets to finance her relationship with Jason. That was a mistake, a big one. I spent my lunch break at Murphy's Pub, showing Tom the photos on my phone. He whistled low and shook his head. "These are good, Marty. Real good. What are you going to do with them?" "I'm thinking about that. Marta works in advertising, where image is everything. Jason makes his living as a social media influencer. They both depend on their reputations. So you're going to destroy their reputations. I'm going to let them destroy their own reputations. I'm just going to help spread the news. Tom grinned. Now you're thinking like a winner. How can I help? You know people in this town. Business owners, community leaders, people who matter. What if some of those people happen to see these photos? What if they did? Might be interesting conversation at the next Chamber of Commerce meeting. The plan was starting to take shape. Marta and Jason had been careless, assuming their affair would remain private, that they could conduct their romance without consequences. They were about to learn that privacy was a luxury they couldn't afford. Friday afternoon brought an unexpected opportunity. Patricia Brennan, Marta's boss at the advertising agency, was hosting a fundraiser for the local arts council at the Riverside Inn, the same hotel where Marta and Jason had been conducting their affair. The irony was too perfect to ignore. The event was open to the public, with tickets available online for $50 each, a small price to pay for the chance to attend Marta's professional and personal destruction. I bought a ticket and spent the weekend preparing. Dave had provided me with a comprehensive dossier on Jason's business problems, his history of targeting married women, and his mounting financial troubles. Combined with the photos of his affair with Marta, it painted a picture of a predator who specialized in destroying families for profit. The fundraiser was scheduled for Tuesday evening. That gave me 3 days to prepare the presentation that would end both their careers and their relationship. Monday morning brought another email from Marta. I've retained a lawyer, Martin. If you continue harassing Jason and me, there will be legal consequences. Legal consequences. Like there hadn't been legal consequences when she started spending our money on hotel rooms and fancy dinners with her boyfriend. Like there wouldn't be legal consequences when she filed for divorce and tried to take half of everything we'd built together. I wrote back. I'm not harassing anyone, but I hope you and Jason are enjoying those hotel rooms. The photos are really quite nice. Her response came within minutes. What photos? The ones my private investigator took. Very artistic. I'm thinking of entering them in a photography contest. Or maybe just sharing them with your colleagues at the fundraiser tomorrow night. My phone rang immediately. Marta, calling from work, her voice tight with panic. Martin, you can't do this. Do what? Share photos of my wife and her boyfriend. Why not? You two look so happy together. This will ruin my career. Your career? What about our marriage? What about our family? What about 17 years of promises you've been breaking one hotel room at a time? Please, Martin, we can work this out. We don't have to do this publicly. We? There is no we, Marta. You made that clear when you started screwing a fitness instructor half your age. You wanted privacy, remember? Well, now you're going to be very, very public. I hung up and turned off my phone. The time for conversation had passed. Tomorrow night, at the Riverside Inn, in front of her colleagues and clients and professional network, Marta was going to learn that actions had consequences, and Jason was going to learn that married women weren't the easy targets he'd thought they were. Tuesday evening arrived gray and cold, with the kind of wind that cut through your jacket and reminded you that winter was always waiting just around the corner. The Riverside Inn was decorated for the Arts Council fundraiser, with banners and balloons and the kind of forced cheerfulness that came with charity events and mandatory fun. I arrived early, wearing my best suit and carrying a laptop bag that contained everything I needed to destroy 2 lives in the space of 15 minutes. The hotel's conference room was filling up with the kind of people who attended fundraisers, business leaders, community activists, arts patrons, and social climbers who saw charity events as networking opportunities. Marta arrived at 7:30, looking nervous and beautiful in a black dress that probably cost more than I made in a week. She was scanning the crowd, looking for me, her eyes wide with the kind of panic that came from knowing your world was about to explode. Jason arrived 10 minutes later, wearing a suit that didn't quite fit and the expression of a man who'd rather be anywhere else. He found Marta in the crowd, and they huddled together like conspirators, whispering urgently about damage control and exit strategies. Patricia Brennan took the stage at 8 o'clock, welcoming everyone to the fundraiser and introducing the evening's program. She was a small, sharp woman in her 60s who'd built her advertising agency through a combination of talent, ruthlessness, and an absolute intolerance for scandal. Before we begin tonight's presentation, Patricia said, I'd like to invite Martin Caldwell to share some thoughts about the importance of community support for the arts. The invitation had been arranged through Tom Murphy, who knew Patricia's husband from the Chamber of Commerce. A simple request to let a local business owner say a few words about community involvement. Nothing suspicious, Nothing that would raise red flags. I walked to the stage carrying my laptop, feeling Marta's eyes burning into my back like laser beams. The conference room was packed, maybe 200 people, all the important figures in our city's business and social community. "Thank you, Patricia," I said, connecting my laptop to the projection system. "I want to talk tonight about truth in advertising and the importance of knowing who you're really doing business with." The first slide appeared on the screen behind me, a photo of Jason and Marta kissing in the parking lot of the downtown Marriott. The image was crystal clear, perfectly lit, and absolutely devastating. The room went silent. Not quiet, silent, like someone had sucked all the sound out of the air. 200 people staring at the screen, then at me, then at Marta, who had gone white as a sheet. "This is Jason Keller," I continued, advancing to the next slide. "He's a fitness instructor and social media influencer who specializes in targeting married women. The woman with him is my wife, Marta Caldwell, who works for Brennan and Associates." The next slide showed financial records, hotel bills, restaurant charges, shopping trips, all paid for with joint credit cards. As you can see, Jason's business model is quite effective. He finds married women with money, seduces them, and then uses their assets to fund his lifestyle. Patricia Brennan was trying to get to the microphone, but I was already advancing to the next slide. Jason's business history, his failed supplement deals, his mounting debts, his pattern of targeting married women. Jason's previous targets include 3 other married women in 3 different cities. In each case, the pattern was the same. Seduce the wife, destroy the marriage, take the money, and move on to the next mark. The room was in chaos now. People were shouting. Patricia was demanding that security remove me, and Marta was pushing through the crowd toward the exit. But I wasn't finished. The final slide was a close-up of Jason and Marta in bed at the Riverside Inn, taken through the window of their room by Dave's telephoto lens. Not explicit, but intimate enough to leave no doubt about the nature of their relationship. "Ladies and gentlemen," I said, as security finally reached the stage, "I present to you the truth about Jason Keller and Marta Caldwell. Thank you for your attention." They escorted me out of the hotel, but the damage was done. 200 of the most influential people in the city had just seen proof of Marta's affair and Jason's predatory behavior. By morning, the story would be all over town. By